I just couldn't dishonor our marriage like that. Brittany and John have been swapping partners for years. That's how the conversation started. Out of the blue, on a Saturday, as we were raking leaves on an unusually warm fall morning, my wife of 5 years carelessly tossed out this valuable information about her cousin and best friend. What? I was caught off guard and instantly intrigued by her provocative statement. Are you telling me you want to do this too? I sat down on the edge of the pile of leaves, while Heather gathered them up and put them in a large black plastic bag. Not with them! Instant reply. But is that really what you want to do? Taking a sip of water, I watched my nimble wife work. Stopping, she turned to me. Have you thought about it? She intercepted the water bottle from me. Neither of us was a virgin before we were married, not by any means. We were both in our 30s and lived full-sex lives while we were in college. We didn't connect until later, on a date through Tinder for that matter. We were both looking for a quick affair with no strings attached, to recover from our respective breakups. We were both pretty sure of that. Her boyfriend, who she dated for a year, dumped her for his ex, while my girlfriend, who I dated for a year and a half, just disappeared like a ghost one afternoon. I found out later that she had left town with her yoga instructor, Lexi. Apparently, they had been having an affair for 6 months. That's right. Lexi got the best job offer in L.A. My ex left me for a woman. I tried to get angry, but I couldn't. Lexi radiated attraction and a feminine magnetism that was irresistible and undeniable. I'd probably run off with her myself if she fell in love and called me out on it. Heather and I lived with our loved ones, but they chose to find their happiness with other people. When we met, we just wanted to shed the rust and feel the warmth of a body next to us. 5.5 years later, I was very happy that I had made the right move. We talked about our past and discussed an exchange, or possibly a threesome. I was neither offended nor shocked by the topic. It was just time. I guessed that she had been thinking about it for some time. You might consider going through something wild and colorful before we start ruining my exquisite body with pregnancy and childbirth, she said, running her hands over that fabulous body. I wrapped my arms around her waist and pulled her behind me onto a pile of leaves. We both laughed and giggled. She fought back, scattering the leaves. I pulled her against me and kissed her. We lay there amongst the fallen leaves. So, swingers? I asked. Yes. Britt pointed me to a swingers website where we could find an experienced couple. She also recommended a trial run before joining any swinger communities or clubs. There was a twinkle in her eyes as she shared her research with me. I'm definitely not ready to commit to a group. I'm not even sure I want to be in the same house with you when you're with some stud. That's true. I've thought about it before, and I wasn't attracted to the idea of seeing Heather with another man's man. I agree. She rolled on top of me to rub against my body. She knew how to get her way. I think a lot of people try a couple on a couple first, to see if they like changing partners or not. I've already found a couple who are willing to let us both try one-on-one before we make any commitments. My eyes must have popped out of my orbits because she started laughing, looking down at me. Have you contacted someone yet? Of course. Heather pulled out her phone and started showing me pictures of the woman. She was gorgeous. Her brown hair, mesmerizing green eyes, and plump lips impressed me. I leafed through the pictures while Heather talked. Their names are Greg and Maureen. He is 34 and she is 28. They're not married, but they've been a couple for 3 years and in an open relationship almost the whole time. By the time I got to his pictures, he really was a good-looking guy. They were a sexy couple. Okay, I'm game if you are. I was actually interested, at least at this point. I pulled down Heather's leggings, and we made hasty love right there in the backyard, hiding behind a pile of leaves. She's as perverted as I am. I love that woman. Heather said she would make sure to coordinate with Maureen, and that they would let us guys know where and when they needed our hard shots. The girls decided to schedule both of our appointments for the same night at a couple of local hotels. Neither of us wanted strangers in our homes, let alone our family beds. They opted for 2 nearby hotels within a block of each other. Greg and Maureen decided to arrive together. Heather and I were going to get there on our own in 2 cabs. I'm not sure I could have gotten past having to watch her leave me for another man. As the agreed-upon night approached, I was both excited and anxious. So many questions flooded my mind. How would this affect my marriage? There was no doubt in my mind that our adulterous dates would change our relationship. After a night like this, we would no longer be faithful to each other. Would I be able to live knowing Heather had sex with another man? There was something about monogamy that appealed to me. I'd never considered myself a prude, but I liked the idea that I would be Heather's last lover, just as I had her. Then there was the whole ego thing. He was older than us, and I've heard many women say that they like older guys because they know how to treat a woman right. Finally, the night we had chosen came. We dressed in silence. Heather looked particularly good and incredibly sexy. That little black dress she loved so much fit her like a second skin. She wasn't wearing a bra, and the thong she was wearing was nothing more than a silk bandage. I watched in awe as she walked down the stairs, pecked me on the cheek, and headed to her car. There was a tinge of sadness in her eyes. She hesitated, as if she was waiting for me to call the whole thing off. I didn't, and she drove off. I watched Heather's car pull away with regret. I immediately changed my mind, ran home, and called my wife. My heart dropped when I heard her phone ring on the kitchen table. She was notorious for forgetting her phone. I didn't know if this time it was intentional or accidental. It could have been innocent, but my jealous mind went dark. She'd left her phone here on purpose so I couldn't ruin her magical night with Greg. I expected more from the woman I loved, that's all. If she's that into Greg, I'll definitely make love to Maureen. Why not? I was sitting at the hotel bar when Maureen walked in. I recognized her immediately. Those piercing green eyes were visible all the way across the bar. The emerald green dress showed off her breasts in the best way possible. They seemed to be a little smaller than Heather's. When we greeted each other with a quick kiss on the cheek and a tight hug, I sensed she wasn't wearing a bra or panties either. I was completely captivated by the vision before me. We ordered drinks and chatted. She was flirtatious, touching my hands and laughing at my silly puns. After about an hour, she leaned over and said in a husky whisper, "Why don't we go to our room, baby?" I was so ready. As I turned to pay our bill, I caught a glimpse of a blonde woman walking through the door. For a brief moment, my mind played tricks on me. Heather introduced herself to me. I heard her laugh. I saw the blue eyes I loved to get lost in. I smelled her favorite perfume. I lost my drive. What am I doing? I don't want to do this. I want to be faithful to my wife. As Maureen got ready to leave, she noticed that I wasn't following her. She stopped and looked at me, a question in her eyes. "Are you okay? Did you forget something?" You could tell she was completely confused. "I don't think I can do this," I muttered, stammering. "What do you mean? I don't think I can sleep with you. I mean, I want to, but I can't." I stood there like the last idiot. She smiled, but it wasn't a sexy or forgiving smile. It was a strained, "What the hell are you talking about?" smile. "You just spent an hour with me. What do you mean you can't make love to me?" Her words oozed venom. If I wasn't already completely turned off before, I certainly was now. "I know you're so sexy and perfect," I replied, stammering, "but I can't disrespect Heather like that. I can't cheat on her. I'm so sorry. Maureen, I know this sounds crazy, but I just can't go through with it. It doesn't matter what Heather is doing at this point. This is about me and the kind of husband I want to be. I shouldn't have let it get this far. I can't control her at this point, but I can control myself. I have decided that I can't just spit on my vows like this or disrespect my wife. Please forgive me, but I have to go." I should have known you were a cuckolded wuss. Why don't you just go home and cry thinking about your wife making love to a real man, you asshole? She took a few steps, then turned to me. Now I'm going to go and find some real man. And with those words, she left. I was glad for my decision. I would have been disappointed in myself for sleeping with such a nasty girl. I watched her leave and ordered a cab. I walked back to the dark, ominous house. It suddenly felt strange being home alone and knowing that the wife you love is now with another man. Knowing that my Heather was cheating on me. Could I really blame her? Was she really cheating? These were the questions I agonized over all the way home. I secretly hoped she would be home when I got there. I'd hoped she'd run away, too. But now I knew the truth. She hadn't. I poured myself a strong Corona and a Coke and sat in the dark, alone with my thoughts and demons. Would she be the same woman I loved when she came home tomorrow? Would I be able to love her knowing what had happened? I found myself face to face with the grandfather clock in the study. I listened as the pendulum counted down the seconds, the minutes, and then the hour. My confusion and regret hurt. I was in darkness when I heard the sound of a car pulling up and stopping in the driveway. I couldn't believe she had brought him to our house to make love in my bed. I got even more pissed off. Then I heard the car pull away. Our front door creaked open. I could make out a muffled cry as a dark figure crossed the hall, heading for the stairs. She stopped, her head tilted to the side as if she sensed my presence. It looked directly at me. "Luke? What are you doing here, Heather?" I couldn't help but let some of my anger out. I wasn't mad at her anymore. I was mad at myself for letting it get this far. Then I felt fear. The situation had gotten to me. Heather came home early and was crying. That asshole must have done something to her. I stood up and crossed the room. What had happened? What had he done? She rushed down the landing and into my arms. Luke, I'm so sorry, baby. Please forgive me. I almost lost my balance from the jolt. Stumbling, I could barely hold on. Heather tensed in my arms. I could feel her trembling as she clung to me. We staggered over to the couch where I sat her down, stepped back and looked at her. She was disheveled, and there was an almost defeated nature about her. There was something else, too, a small glimmer of relief in her eyes that contradicted the depressed demeanor. It matched my own sense of relief that we were both home. What happened? I turned on the light and saw that her makeup was smeared and her eyes were red. I couldn't do it, Luke. I tried for you, but I couldn't. He tried to get me drunk and make me stay after I decided I couldn't do it. He tried to make me, but I left. It's okay, honey, I couldn't do it either. You couldn't do it? I could see the surprise in her eyes. Why, she's so pretty. I couldn't disrespect you like that. It was a big mistake from the beginning. I thought that's what you wanted. I thought this is what you wanted, Heather. I never wanted it. I only did it for you. I mean, it did sound fun and it was freaking fantastic, but when it came to going through with it, I couldn't. I just couldn't dishonor our marriage like that. Neither could I. I didn't even kiss him, Luke. As soon as I sat down at the table, I realized that someone else wasn't what I wanted at all. I want to go back there to the two of us before I had my stupid idea. I'm so sorry, baby. She crawled into my arms. Her face rested on my chest and we hugged each other. I couldn't believe how close we had come to destroying our marriage, our relationship, and everything we held dear, just because we wanted to give each other what we thought was in line with the other's desire. It's amazing how generosity can sometimes have unpleasant consequences. I took it as a positive sign. We both respected our relationship so much that even against the arrangement, we couldn't destroy it. We never heard from Greg and Maureen after that unfortunate night. Today is our 25th wedding anniversary. We are surrounded by family and friends. Our two boys and their families are circulating, socializing with family and friends. I catch a glimpse of Heather across the room. Her eyes meet mine. I smile. She gives me a mischievous grin in return. I raise my eyebrows a couple times as if to ask, "Do you want some?" I point to the empty hallway. Heather walks up to me as I seemingly check to see if the door is locked. I hold the door open. Heather grabs me as I walk past and dives inside. I wouldn't trade the last 25 years for anything in the world. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Fighting to keep you from cheating. Uncle D, Aunt Alice, and Mom are going away for the weekend. Interesting. Was my nephew Sean asking me or just informing me? My name was Daniel, but my nieces and nephew shortened my name. I liked it. Alice really wasn't going to be home this weekend, so all I had to do was close up for the night. In the middle of the afternoon, the phone beeped a few times. I reluctantly checked it and found a couple messages from Alice. She and Rhoda had pooled their money together to buy an antique side table that they hoped to resell for a nice profit, but had spent the money in the process, so they would just be window shopping until the next overnight train home. There was a picture attached to it. A small brown table with thin, strained legs and a couple of drawers hidden under a lid. It looked antique. It also looked ugly as hell. It certainly looked out of place in the hotel room the two of them shared, which seemed to be furnished with standard, cheap-as-can-be hotel furniture, worn and shabby. More interesting were the 19th century town clock visible through the window, and what looked like Morris dancers in the square in front of it. Oh well, at least they'd have some entertainment, although I doubted that Morris dances. Men dressed like rednecks with bells on their feet, dancing in circles and apparently threatening each other with sticks, could be classified as entertainment. I chuckled to myself. As far as I could tell, they had yet to make a profit on anything they bought, but they really loved antiques, and the two of them spent a weekend every couple months buying junk and trying to resell it as treasure. I didn't mind, it gave me a weekend free from worry, and they were both always excited and happy at the possibility of discovering a lost Chippendale or Hepplewhite. Shaking my head gently at my wife's eternal hope, but being a skeptic, I researched her antique table. I scoured the internet, found it, and discovered that it was probably worth about 20 pounds. A 1970s knockoff in the cheap French style. An antique store in another town was selling the same one for 30, including shipping costs. The daughters-in-law would have suffered considerable loss in that case. I sighed. They both loved their treasure hunt, but it seemed to cost far more than it brought in profit, and the junk they couldn't sell always decorated our house. Then I brightened. A mistake like this meant that Alice would soon try to make it up to me with a lot of love, which was always a good thing. She'd be a little quiet and depressed for a while, but then she'd start trying to coax money out of me for their next weekend. I didn't mind too much. She could have girls' nights out, then I'd object to it, which in turn would make her an unhappy wife. Pairing antiques with my sister-in-law was as dangerous as spending the night in a bingo hall. I wasn't opposed to subsidizing her hobby to some extent and had told her so from the beginning. But when she and Rhoda drove back and forth through hundreds of tiny villages to see if they had decent stores, I'd get a huge gas bill. When I objected, they decided it would be cheaper for them to rent a room in one of the hotels in the area and use it as a base. One night turned into 2 every 3 months, and they were like happy chickens with a brood of chicks. Alan, my brother, was a bit of a cheapskate and moaned for a while, but Rhoda seemed to have talked him down somehow. So he smiled and stopped grumbling about having to share expenses. Of course, I couldn't guess how she'd made him so malleable. This venture would cost them both 400 pounds of their weekend budget, spent on the dubious pleasure of window-gazing and dancing with Morris. I shook my head and laughed again. Eventually, I grabbed my coat off the rack and went for a walk. It was a cold, breezy day, and I hadn't taken my coat for nothing. When I got home, I absent-mindedly threw it on the coat rack. As usual, it fell to the floor. This always annoyed me because the hooks were too short, and the coat always fell to the floor if not hung carefully. I remembered seeing something very similar in my previous searches and wondered how much Alice might get for the coat rack if I insisted she get rid of it. Maybe she'd make a profit, which would be nice. Oddly enough, when I went to the computer and started looking at other pictures of antiques, I couldn't remember any details of the coat rack. I went back, looked at it for a while, and then went back to my desk to try again. Nothing. I took a picture of the clothes rack with my phone, deciding to put it next to my monitor as a reference point. But as soon as I looked at the picture, I found it suddenly clear in my memory. Turning back to the computer, I looked at the images of the clothes hangers, the pages flickering as I clicked on the mouse. There were 3 pictures from 3 different stores, so the chances of it being a rare antique were slim. One of the stores on the browser's image page, advertising a clothes rack, was the same one that sold Alice's table. I shook my head. There's a sucker born every minute, and this store obviously knew it. In the list of merchandise, I saw a picture of the mug they'd bought last weekend, a huge mug with a picture of the royal wedding on it. There was the mug, and there was the name of the store that sold it. 3 items bought by enterprising entrepreneurs were available at the same store, Taylor's Antiques in Harlington. Once is interesting, twice is coincidence, 3 times is worth researching. If the women visited a different neighborhood every weekend in search of rare and unique items, of course, the chances of buying 3 items also available at the same store were pretty slim. And if their purchases were available everywhere, they must have realized they couldn't make a profit. I went all over the house looking for other things that my wife hadn't already managed to pass on to some other sucker. In a few minutes, I had a picture of a jewelry box that played a tune while a ballerina rotated whenever the lid was lifted, a brass snuff box with a decent pattern engraved on the lid, and a supposedly Victorian tailor's mannequin that now adorned our spare room. The jewelry box was so common that I could have bought 3 within a 5-kilometer radius of my house, while the other 2 were not so common. But all 3 were advertised on the website, Taylor's Antiques. This was very strange because the store was in Harlington in Bedfordshire, and the hotel the women had booked was outside Ashford in Kent, where there were many antique stores. It wasn't that far apart, 100 miles or so, but they had all of Greater London between them. Something was distinctly suspicious. The next stop was Google Maps. Harlington was by no means big, not much more than a hamlet with grandiose dreams of becoming a village. The photos on this page showed a dull little cluster of houses, pubs, and stores, although the clock tower on the small village hall was unique. There was enough detail in the photo to identify the tower as the same one in the photo Alice and Rhoda had sent me. So why were they there? There was something about the name of the village, something pesky, that my memory recognized but refused to detail. After trying various things to wiggle my slow brain, I finally checked the phone prefix online and found hundreds of pages of names listed in that area. Sighing, I started clicking around. Suddenly, one name popped up. Talbot, S. Mr., 1472, Sandon Road, Harlington, 809-476. Talbot, Chris Talbot, he or his brother Callum. The Talbot twins, better known as the Tosspot twins when we were still at school, were potential toughs. They were low-level, lower-class assholes who bullied their way through life, even challenging my brother and I to try and pick up our girlfriends in our penultimate year at school. They were 2 years older than Alan and 3 older than me, but a year behind me in school after spending a couple years in a correctional facility. Alan and I didn't back down, and the clarification of our relationship took place behind the bike sheds. As always happened when a fight was secretly taking place at school, the area was filled with an overly enthusiastic audience. The Tosspots treated it like some kind of championship fight and seemed to be copying Rocky Balboa, shadowboxing, running in small circles. Alan and I just watched them from the other end of the open area in the center of the crowd. We had a plan, and acting like 5-year-olds with sugar fever was not part of it. The 2 girls at the center of this mess were among a flock of girls off to the side, in neutral territory between the two factions, which was disappointing. It would have been a little more reassuring to know that they were at least supporting our side. The twins were big, with strong homegrown muscles, pumped up by years of forced labor on their stepfather's farm. So when they attacked, we wisely schemed and pulled out the cricket bats we had hidden in the bushes, and after we scored a couple of runs, they didn't want to fight anymore. I wasn't a dumbass. I sold telecommunications equipment, mostly to government agencies that already knew exactly what they wanted. Basically, all they really needed was someone to hold their hands while they signed contracts, which didn't require much mental capacity. No, I wasn't an intellectual, but I could guess what was going on here. The scheme was pretty simple. I thought about it for a while and then called my brother. After some discussion, Alan agreed with my conclusions. Our wives had been cheating on us with the Talbots for a couple years now. My older brother was furious. However, my feelings puzzled me. I was angry at Alice for her cheating, especially the fact that she regularly hung out with assholes who were so far below her in class and quality. But I wasn't hurt. I was hurt, but not devastated. And I felt deep disappointment in her choices, but not despair. I didn't feel like playing online games anymore, and the rain had stopped. So I wandered to the store and bought a pint of milk instead. I caught myself staring at the beer shelves, and I really wanted a liter or two of Newcastle's best brown ale. Sadly, I went home to have a cup of tea and some chocolate snacks, immersed in my thoughts. I was startled when my phone rang. "Yes, hello?" "Daniel?" Alice's voice. "Is that you?" "Yeah. What do you want, Alice?" Your brother was just here." I was surprised. He started acting up a lot sooner than I expected. "What did he say?" "He didn't say a word. He just stood there, his face so red I thought he was having a heart attack. Then he hit Rhoda so hard she fell and dragged her from the room. Should I call the police?" "Are you sure you want to make light of this? I think it would reveal your little secret, don't you? Or did you really think Alan's actions came out of the blue? He just woke up and decided to take out his frustration with life on Rhoda?" The pause was even longer this time. "What do you mean?" she asked at last. "Alice, this is unworthy of you. You should have realized the moment Alan showed up at the hotel miles away from where you were supposed to be that we'd learned all about your disgusting little weekend." A faint sob was heard, and I pictured her there so clearly, sitting on the bed in her robe. Her face was pink, and her eyes were red from crying. I didn't feel much sympathy, however. For all I knew, she could have been dressed in a sheer satin shirt and lying comfortably with a glass of champagne and a wide smile. I was sorry. I sighed heavily. "Yes, we're all sorry. And what will your apology get us?" "So what should we do now?" she asked quietly after a long silence. "We don't do anything. I'll probably find another place to live, unless you want to move and live with syphilitic siblings." "God, no," she said firmly. Sounds like you clearly don't have any positive feelings about them. So it was just for love-making, then?" "I love you, and I love making love to you. But they're the complete opposite of you in every way, and that's what made it exciting." "Huh," I said, even though I appreciated her honesty. What I hadn't considered was that she'd slept with both of them. That had never occurred to me. Both of them? Really? God, I'm even more disappointed in you. How could I not see in you this need to indulge your basest desires? What's next? You gonna go out and steal things, hurt children, torture animals, kill people? Oh, come on, Daniel. I admit I cheated on you, but it was just sex. I don't deserve that. I'm not that bad. I think I'm pretty bad. You happily went and cheated, which is a primitive desire. It's the caveman part of your brain screaming, "I want it, so I'm going to get it no matter what." Cheating, stealing, killing, all these are part of the primitive brain. That's why we don't do that, and created civilization to try to enforce it. It also means that the person who does these things is not evolved enough. They don't have enough empathy to be civilized. Because the common thing in all these things is that when you allow yourself to do it, someone always suffers. The cost to the person doing it is often negligible because someone else always pays the price in pain, and by your actions, you have shown who and what you are. I am deeply disappointed in myself for not realizing this. Oh, come on. This is ridiculous. I admitted that I cheated on you, but I didn't try to kill you or steal from you or anything. No, you just did the thing that hurt me the most. Worse, you deliberately planned it, carried it out, and even made me pay for it, all the while knowing it would hurt me badly. I'm sorry, but I still don't see the difference. And if you think there's a lesser degree of pain in this situation that gives you salvation, then you're even further down the road to that monkey brain than I thought. Alan, I never thought you'd find out. I never meant to hurt you. I love you. You keep saying that, and maybe you do. But you still did it happily and with malice. You never once tried to protect me from that cave woman you have inside you. In fact, I'm probably belittling Stone Age people by saying this. Monkey brain sounds better. Not for me, she said miserably. At the moment, I'm married to an underdeveloped human-shaped creature. Stop it, it's not fair. You're just trying to hurt me. It's a fight-or-flight reflex, Alice, I said nonchalantly. It's another part of the base brain, except this part tries to defend itself and survive when it's attacked. I'm not attacking you. I never meant to. How do you think I should react when I find out that you make threesomes with your sister-in-law every 3 months and amusingly make me pay in pain and money for the privilege of being horny? Or when I realized that you point me in one direction and then go in another to hide your basest urges? Or when I realized that you buy junk from the same store around the corner and pretend to dig it up in different places on your antique shopping trips? Did you imagine that I would continue to ignore all of this? Or did you assume that I wouldn't care and might even be happy that you were finally able to satisfy this arboreal primate? No. No matter how you look at it, you attacked me. I didn't do it. I didn't think anything of it. I thought you'd never know, so I never considered any of that. And it never occurred to me that you were paying for my deception. It was just part of our budget. How did you find out about it? And why do you say that? I've never heard you talk like that before. Where is this coming from? Common sense, Alice. Your instincts have brought you back to your primal base, and mine have helped me push forward. Now, knowing that, is there any reason why you might think that the primate and I should stay together? I can't imagine you staying with me as a pet. What if you regress further? She was crying hard now. You're being so awful, she sobbed. I wish you'd just slap me like Alan slapped Rhoda. I probably deserve it, but it's just cruel. It's all logic. Any cruelty you feel is just a reaction to my point. I'm sorry that Alan hit Rhoda. It wasn't my way. It was your way. You fought for me in high school. You fought for me and you beat me. It was exciting. So, her words took my breath away for a moment. So I had to keep fighting for you not to cheat? Is that it? Well, no, but it meant so much. It meant that you loved me more than anything or anyone else. Then let me ask you this. Who did you fight for me? A long silence followed as she realized what an intolerable position she'd put herself in. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry. She hung up. I didn't call back. I guess I didn't love her as much as I thought I did. Maybe being together as long as we were meant rubbing the gold luster to a patina, though I expect that happens to most couples. Either way, she wasn't special to me anymore, just ordinary. Just a woman you'd walk past on the street without giving her a second thought or consideration. So, in the end, despite Alice's yelling and gnashing of teeth, and admittedly a few misgivings and thoughts of forgiveness from me, we headed to the divorce court. I thought about getting back at those jerks somehow, but then I realized it was impossible. They'd been farming all their lives, so physically they were probably even stronger now than when they were teenagers, and I no longer had a cricket bat. More importantly, a closer look at Google Maps showed that their crops probably consisted mostly of dirt, and the farmhouse they shared with 2 wives and a horde of poorly dressed children in rags looked more like the remains of a gypsy camp than anything else. There was nothing I could do to them that would make their lives any worse. I suppose my wife and sister-in-law's quarterly visits to their village were probably the highlights of their miserable lives. Christmas, Easter, Guy Fawkes, and New Year's Eve all together in 2 nights. Perhaps that's why the Morris dancers came to the party. Alice and I agreed amicably enough on the division of property for the divorce, even though I absolutely insisted that she keep all the things she brought home from their antiques and continue to rent the house. I moved out and found my own place. Alan and Rhoda had a rough time for a few years, but eventually settled down again after my brother first organized and then regretted his own 4-month affair, which equalized them to some extent. I lost a few friends in the months before and after the divorce. But it wasn't for the reason I thought. It had nothing to do with my broken marriage. "I don't care about your divorce," my buddy explained when I asked him about it. "She cheated on you and you got divorced. This isn't the first time this has happened in our circle, and I've learned not to take sides. No, the thing is, you've become a bit of an asshole, pretentious and arrogant. Whenever we get together, I feel like you look down on all of us, even though you try to hide it. We went to school together, and we both got the same education. So, what is this arrogant attitude and talking down to us as if you know something hidden from the rest of us?" Homeschooling was the only answer I could give at the time. But thinking about what he said made me realize that he was right. There was nothing wrong with him as a friend, but I treated him and the rest of the people we interacted with as less intelligent and almost uneducated. I had truly become a complete and utter asshole. And yet I couldn't go back to being the person I used to be before this whole mess started, a happily stupid, unsuspecting cuckold who just glided effortlessly across the surface of life, leaving almost no ripples in his wake. I couldn't do it for them, and I wouldn't try to do it for myself. I refused to be that person from now on. I left my old life behind me. After a few months of wandering around Britain, I moved on, eventually traveling the world and earning a living in many countries as a teacher of English, history, or geography. I spent quite a few hours on my laptop when I visited and mastered the local languages. In Taiwan, I met and fell in love with a tiny university professor. She was a local, and her real name was Mei Lin, which means beautiful and gentle, and was quite appropriate. However, most Taiwanese also have English-sounding names, and Kitty was the name she usually responded to, which fit her personality perfectly. She was pleasant to look at, but at first she was prickly and aloof. After we got to know each other better, however, she became playful and always affectionate. And she liked to be stroked and petted like a gentle kitty when she sat on my lap or lay on me, small enough to make us both perfectly comfortable. All her other preferences were quite human, and that's how I felt about her. So we were perfect for each other. After we got married and moved to Australia, my nieces and nephew, separately or together, came to visit us in Sydney whenever they had free vacation time. Sean was happy for me to talk to him about his astrophysical research and rocket engineering developments. And what about Alice? It would have been wonderful to imagine her withering away and dying miserably without me. No. She finally met and married a farmer who wasn't a Talbot, raised an adopted family, and is quite content with an ordinary life. I finally apologized to her for calling her such a harsh name during that phone call. I assured her that she wasn't really genetically retarded or a despicable criminal, just a greedy, spiteful, and selfish individual. Somehow she didn't consider that an apology, but I didn't feel the need to go on any further. I heard that she no longer deals in antiques and all the furniture in her house is as new as they can afford. Memories are not always pleasant. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.